Talking
Sure.
with Ty Bollinger. Ty, you're the author of Cancer, Step Outside the Box. How did that book come about? And looking at the book, there was a lot of things that really impacted what you're doing now, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Good question, Scott. I mean, what really influenced me to write this book, Cancer Step Outside the Box, was the death of my father initially.
Mm.
And over the course of 7 years after Dad died, uh, six other family members died. So my father I lost in July of 1995, and then started like a domino effect, other family members dying. I remember speaking to my wife, Charlene, before Dad had died, maybe 2 months before he died, saying how weird it was that we'd never had any family member, any close family member die. And July the 1st, 1996, Dad had a stomach ache, and we went over to his house to meet him and Mom to go to dinner with him, to go to Subway. And we brought some Subway over to eat with him because he was in too much pain to even go out.
Mm.
And while we were there, he doubled over in pain. We ended up taking him to the emergency room. They thought he had gallstones, went in to operate on the gallstones, and by the middle of the morning, the doctor came out in tears and said he has stomach cancer all over his stomach. And we said, what should we do? We didn't know what to do. I didn't know anything about cancer. And the doctor said, we got to cut it out. So we said, well, the doctor says to cut it out, so let's cut it out. So he cut his stomach out, his entire stomach, total gastrectomy. Stitched some of his other intestines back up to here to form a pouch. It was just a total mess. And Dad, over the course of the next 3 weeks, died. He bled to death. He had 18 blood transfusions over 25 days. July the 25th, 1996, 25 days after they went into surgery for gallstones, he died. And he died from the surgery. The death certificate says stomach cancer,
Mm.
but he didn't die from stomach cancer. He died from the surgery. He never was stitched up. So that was my, uh, that was me being thrown headfirst
Mm-hmm.
into cancer research, because during that 3 weeks I began to research, and Dad was adamant against chemo. He was adamant against radiation. He didn't have a choice of the surgery. He was out. He was under. The doctor said, let's do it. So the family made a choice to do the surgery. He didn't have a choice of that, but he said, I will not do chemo. I will not do radiation. Doctors gave him two or 3 months to live. When they were speaking to him, he died, less than a month. But he was adamantly opposed to the chemo and radiation. So I began during that time to go to the library and to bookstores, health stores, to read about cancer, to read about alternative methods to treat cancer. And I began to learn that there are a lot of other ways to treat cancer than the conventional big three treatments that I refer to them in my book, which is chemo, radiation, and surgery.
Mm.
There's a lot of other ways to treat cancer. People just don't know about them. They didn't know about them then. They're beginning to learn about them more now. Dad died. Didn't have a
Mm.
chance to take him. We had called the what's called the Biomedical Center in Tijuana, which used to be
Mm-hmm.
the Hoxie Center. Harry Hoxie was a doctor in Dallas that had a very successful cancer treatment clinic. That he was run out of the country by the FDA, and he went down to Tijuana. We were going to take Dad there, but he didn't make it.
Mm-hmm.
But that was when I started to do the research. After Dad died, let's see, that was July '96. Granddad died October '96 of cancer. Next year, July '97, my dad's brother, Joel, my uncle, died of cancer. So 3 in 1 year. My
Mm-hmm.
grandmom lost her husband and her 2 sons in 368 days. So grandmom was alone. She just died last year, but not from cancer. But God bless her. She
Mm-hmm.
she had a tough time of it back when you lose your whole family in a span of a year. But after that, cousin died of brain cancer. Um, Another grandfather died of cancer. Then grandmother died of cancer, and then the last one that was my mother.
Mm-hmm.
In 2004, she died of cancer. So 7 members of my family died of cancer.
During that time, was there a moment or something that happened where you clicked and something said, okay, this is ridiculous, that what's happening in these treatments isn't working?
Yeah, it did. It was almost like I would describe moments of enlightenment, and then you crawl back in the box.
Yeah.
And that's why the title of the book, Cancer, Step Outside the Box, you got to get out of the box, because this conventional cancer box is what keeps people in the dark. And we would step out of the box and we'd kind of crawl back in. But when Mom died, that was 2004. I'd done so much research at that time, and I had so much knowledge, and we tried to treat her sort of naturally, but and she actually died of a stroke that was I believe that was a result of surgery, but it's hard to tell.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that the death certificate for Mom says cancer, but I don't think she actually died of cancer. She had a total gastrectomy too, just like Dad.
Mm-hmm.
She went in for a small cancerous tumor. They took out her whole stomach. But at that time, I still didn't know. I still didn't
Mm-hmm.
know how dangerous surgery is. Even though that Dad had died as a result of that surgery. I hadn't really put two and two together yet. And the doctor came out and he was in tears, and we said, "What should we do?" And he said, "We got to cut her whole stomach out." So what do you do? The man in white, who's got 10 years of experience treating this kind of stuff, or learning to treat this stuff, and then 20 years experience treating it, says to cut her stomach out. What do? You cut her stomach out because the doctor says so. And so that's what we did with Mom. And so over the course of the next 18 months, she lived 18 months after the surgery, but she had a lot of complications. She had a pretty decent quality of life, but she ended up dying of a massive stroke. My mom died. But when she died, I remember talking to my wife and said, I just have to get this information out so people can have some knowledge about this, because the biggest reason I think that people they succumb to allowing themselves to go in for these conventional cancer treatments is they just don't know anything else. And so they're diagnosed with cancer. They're scared to death because they know nothing about this disease except they're probably going to die from it. And the doctor says you got 3 choices, and they do one of those choices. And I thought, if for nothing else, number one, I'm a Christian, so I want to honor my parents, and I want to get this out there for Mom and Dad to honor them. They died, and they would be proud of this book because it's in an attempt to help people. So I really wanted to do that to honor them, and I wanted to get the information out there. I mean, by training, I'm not a doctor. I have a degree in accounting, and I've got a master's in taxation. But one thing I learned to do when I was in medical school, when I was in graduate school studying tax, was to summarize the Internal Revenue Code and to write thesis papers on it so that people could understand what it means. So I figured if I can summarize the Internal Revenue Code, I can summarize medical information and make it readable to a layman. So that's what I did with this book. It's more kind of a compilation of information. It's not really any treatments or information that I would call unique to me. There's so much information on the internet. Where do you start? People get out there and they are so overwhelmed. They don't even know where to go. So I thought, I've got 5,000 hours of research between 1996 and 2004, literally, researching cancer. And I've got notes out the wazoo. Why not just put it together, compile it into a book, and so people can have it? And if nothing else, when they're diagnosed with cancer, which 1 in 2 men, 1 in 3 women by the year 2020 will be diagnosed with cancer, World Health Organization statistics, at least when they have that diagnosis, they're going to be empowered with the knowledge to know that there's something else they can do if they decide to go natural as opposed to chemo, radiation, or surgery. So that's why I put the book together.